Rated M for mature.
Don't let your kids watch it!
Hey there, Artie!
Well, we don't get to see the phone call, so now we're back to Keiichi. I opened the windows, but all they let in was the heat and the cries of the cicadas.
味いいな。
味いいね。
No. It was the break time between classes, but we really couldn't get any rest. Mion and I leaned on our desks, exhausted by the heat. The younger kids sure are tough, considering how the heat wasn't bothering them at all. They were running around the classroom despite the temperature.
やっぱりさ、都会の学校だと教室にもクーラーとか入ってるわけ？
そんなことねえぞ。あるのはせいぜい職員室ぐらいだな。
Well, the teachers have to be there longer, so I get it.
うわぁ、それは羨ましいね。生徒みんなで職員室を襲って占拠とかしないの？
This is actually Shion right now.
その辺の発想が実にミオン臭い。ああ。
I didn't even have the energy to laugh. Mion and I stopped talking and used our notebooks to fan ourselves. I looked at the empty seat nearby. It was Rena's. Rena didn't come to school today. She called and told Chia-sensei that she couldn't come because she's sick.
レナのやつ、最近元気ないよな。
Yeah, I wonder why. It's not like she committed double homicide or anything.
だね。
Although she doesn't really seem to feel bad about that. She's actually just discovering more about the cult of Oyashiro-sama. This is really hitting some Chapter 1 parallels. Yeah, they're skipping a lot because there's a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, you know how this happened into Chapter 1? Yeah, this happened here as well. Yeah, this is such a weird hybrid of Chapter 1 and 3.
暑さにやられたのかもね。
Although the only real parallel to Chapter 3 is the murder that took place. Of the same guy!
なあ、本気で暑さでやられたと思ってるのか？
そう思ってるけど。
例の一件がさ。
かもね。それに暑さも加わって夏バテでも起こしたんじゃないかな。
I can't even imagine how distressing it must have been for her to commit a murder, dismember the bodies, then get caught by her friends. We took each other's hands at that place and we united. All of us believed that we had closed the case there and had regained our peace. But was that as easy a task for Rena as it was for us? She must not have quite recovered yet.
おじさんはみんなで楽しく遊んでればそのうち元気になると思ってたんだけどね。そこまで心の傷が浅くなかったってことかな。
こういう時さ、どうしたらレナを元気づけられるかな？
多分ほっとくのが一番じゃないかな。
おいおい、そんなのでいいのかよ。俺たち仲間だろ？
I forgot Keiichi called in sick in Chapter 1. He did do that, didn't he? Makes sense. But we haven't had Rena encounter anybody with lizard eyes yet. Or vice versa. I'm waiting for the lizard eyes to return.
ほら、ホームシックってあるじゃない？
Well, it's funny how you say that word.
あれもね、ちょっと寂しいからって言って実家に電話なんかかけちゃうと一気に発症しちゃうらしいよ。寂しい時はぐっと耐えて、例えばスポーツにでも打ち込んで気分転換を図るのが一番なんだってさ。
気分転換させてやりたくても、あいつ最近部活に加わらないし。
レナはどうか知らないけどさ、人には甘えたい欲ってのがあるんだよ。そばに支えてくれる人や同情してくれる人がいると甘えたくなる欲。慰めてくれる人が現れるとさ、際限なく甘えちゃうことってない？
どうだろうな。
際限なく甘えるってことは相手の同情をより深く得ようとするってこと。そうするとケイちゃんは慰めてるつもりなのに相手はどんどん落ち込んでいっちゃうことがあるんだよね。慰められて甘えられる、これに味を占めると不幸に酔うのが癖になる。レナもその辺分かってるからわざと一人になろうとしてるんじゃない？慰めや甘えが目的だったら私たちのそばにいて涙を流せば済むわけだし。
じゃあ落ち込んでるレナをどう励ませばいいんだよ。
You're very astute, Mion.
女の心情としては辛さを励ましてくれるより忘れさせてくれる方が嬉しいね。
慰めるな、励ますな。なんだよ、お手上げじゃないかよ。
Just be loud.
慰めるな励ますなは心理カウンセラーの鉄則だって知ってる？結局心の傷ってのは
True.
自分で治すようにできてる。
You can't help someone who doesn't want help.
周りの人が治したとしてもそれは本当の完治じゃない。だからレナが自分で元気になるのを私たちは見守るしかないんだよ。
理屈じゃ理解できるが、なんだか薄情な気がして好きになれねえな。
I clasped my hands behind the back of my head, looking at the ceiling. Mion laughed.
それだけレナのことを心配してくれるケイちゃんが身近にいるならレナは大丈夫だよ。立ち直れるよ。
近くにいるだけでか？うさんくさいな。
ケイチにだってできることがありますですよ。
Oh, I'll listen to you, Rika. You know everything. Rika-chan spoke up. I wonder how long she'd been listening to our conversation.
俺にもできることがあるのか？
レナが話したいと思った時や打ち明けたいと思った時に静かに聞いてあげることなのです。
聞くだけでいいのか？
Good
励まさなく
advice.
ていいのかよ。
ケイちゃん、打ち明けるだけで心が軽くなるもんだよ。静かに耳を傾けるのが何よりも嬉しい時ってある。
Oftentimes,
いいの言う通りなのですよ。
oftentimes the best thing you can do when somebody is like suffering or grieving is to just, yeah, be there with them, not say anything, and just be there with them.
レナが話したいと思った時、いつでも話しかけられる場所にいてあげるのもきっと仲間として大切なことなのだと思いますです。
Sorry, Rika, I blacked out the screen before you finished because you took a long pause in between your sentences, and I don't speak Japanese. Mion and Rika-chan were absolutely right. I was going to pat Rena on her shoulder and tell her to cheer up when I saw her next, but now I know that would have been one-sided on my part. Have you tried not being unhappy? Rena doesn't want to feel down herself. She wants to cheer up if at all possible. If I cheered her up irresponsibly, she'd be very disappointed, and because she'd think that I didn't understand her pain.
そうだな。俺ちょっと人の心ってやつを理解しようとしてなかったな。レナを励ましたいのは俺の欲求であってレナの求めることじゃない。ありがとな、二人とも。俺ひょっとすると今日まで何か勘違いをしてたかもしれないぜ。
On that day, I thought I cheered her up, but I started to doubt if I had reached her heart. I might have just been dragging her someplace where I wanted her to go. I wasn't on her side in the real sense of the term. All of a sudden, Rika-chan patted my head. That's pretty close there, Rika. Yay! Oh, she's not that close in the OG art style.
ケイチは一番のレナの味方ですよ。それは疑わなくて大丈夫なのです。
俺また考え事を口に出しちまったのか。
Everyone's like, oh yeah, they got the hots for each other this time.
レナの心には届いてるよ。ケイちゃんはあの日とても強い力をレナに与えたんだからさ。いやー、でもさ、よくよく思い出すと
Yeah, more than a little
すっごい恥ずかしい
bit.
こと言ってたよね。
Yeah, it was pretty corny. We heard footsteps from the hallway, and everybody started to head back to their desks.
お待たせしました。
Going back to remake. Hi, remade teacher is the hottest. Take your seats, everyone.
それでは委員長、
起立。
Keiichi progress? He's realizing he didn't even try to understand other people's feelings. Oh my gosh. He's great. We didn't have a club meeting that day because Rena wasn't around. That worked out for me because I had an errand to run. It wasn't a big errand. My mom wanted me to use her point card to get some detergent. I didn't see the point of going all the way to the store just to get detergent, but my mom told me to go because she's busy helping my dad with his work. I started walking towards the shopping center. I noticed someone was watching me, hiding behind a distant tree. I wonder who would do such a mischievous thing. I stared at them to find out who it was, at which point they emerged.
お、レナじゃねえか。
Are you feeling better now? I was about to say that, but I swallowed the words. Somehow Rena looked very serious.
どうしたんだ？
Rena put her index finger to her lips, told me to be quiet, and looked around carefully, then beckoned me for me to come over. I had no idea what was going on, but I followed her instructions, shut my mouth, and ran to her. Rena gestured for me to squat down to hide in the shadow of the bush. I didn't know why I had to do that, but I could ask her the question later. I just followed her orders for now. Rena looked like she was making sure no one was following her. If it was Mion, she'd do something like this just to fool me, as a joke. But I know Rena doesn't do things like this for fun. I had no idea what kind of situation I had got myself into, but I could feel how tense it was, and I made myself as small as I could.
もういいよ。ごめんね。
The tone of her voice made me relax a little.
どうしたってんだよ一体。
多分私、誰かに最近後をつけられているの。
So this is literally... Okay. This is so weird, because we might be able to figure out what happened in Chapter 1 from this chapter, because basically what happened to Keiichi in Chapter 1 is happening to Rena in this chapter. A little bit differently. But yeah, in Chapter 1, Keiichi was like, everyone's following me, and now Rena, everyone's following her too.
なんだって。
Who would follow her? When I thought about it, I realized how stupid the question was.
まさか警察かよ。
Rina, Mamiya, and Tepe Hojo. 2 people disappeared. Even though they were awful human beings, the police had to investigate if they found out they'd gone missing. It probably wouldn't be difficult to find out that Rina had often been to Rena's house. But it should be okay. As long as they don't find those bags, it should be okay.
警察なのか、警察じゃないのかはわからないけれど、綿流しの夜以降、誰かにずっと見られている気がするの。
Okay, what is it that happens at Watanagashi that makes people, like, paranoid and be like, someone's following me? Because also Shion had, like, the, oh my gosh, Satoshi's behind me, because, like, she was hearing the extra set of footsteps. Keiichi was also hearing the extra set of footsteps at the end of Chapter 3 when he was in the loony bin. Right before he died. What the crap is going on?
どういうことだよ。
Once I asked that question, Rena stared directly at me with a blank expression. Her eyes looked as though they were evaluating me. She stared at me as if she was assessing whether I was worth talking to about something very important. Rena squeezed her own wrist tightly and then she started talking in a whisper.
話してもいいけど、誰にも内緒にできる。
Oh yeah, Keiichi will never blab. Absolutely not.
あ、もちろんだぜ。レナがそうしろってんなら誰にも喋らない。
圭一君なら信用できるよ。
But Rena's actually trusting in us, which is interesting. She smiled and looked around one more time.
連中はひょっとすると、ミオさんのスクラップ帳を探しているのかもしれないの。
ミオさん？で、ああ、看護師の
Oh yeah,
高
she
野
was
さんのことか。
weird.
あとスクラップ帳って何のことだ？
秘密の捜査になっているって言ってたから、多分圭一君は知らないよね。
Is this what we're gonna learn about what the phone call last night was about?
高野ミオさん、殺されたんだって。
え？
Keiichi, shut up. Don't say so loud.
いつ？
She told me to be quiet again. I lowered my voice and let her continue.
綿流しの夜、私たちはミオさんと、あと富武さんに会ったよね。あの直後に2人が襲われたんだって。富武さんは
Yo,
お
he's
社
cut
様
as
のたた
always.
りにあって喉をかきむしって死んだ。ミオさんは岐阜の山中で焼き殺されていたと言ってたの。
Well, at least how did she get a body double? Because we learned at the end of Chapter 2 that she faked her own death. By the way, kind of a weird reveal to include in the Chapter 2 ending. I feel like that was one that they probably should have saved for later. But, like, she faked her own death, so she got a fake corpse. How did they not know that the corpse wasn't her? Don't they do, like an autopsy and a forensic test that will prove if it matches or not? Maybe it was just burned beyond comprehension, and they're just like, yeah, well, it is a female, so it's probably her. And then they're like, oh, anyway, she wasn't.
それ本当かよ。そんなの誰も知らないぞ。
それは警察が伏せて捜査をしてるからなの。
Then how do you know?
ひなみ沢村連続開始事件は今年で5年目になっちゃうでしょ。だから変に騒がれたくないんで
I love how they...
事件を公にしていないんだ。
Well, okay, it makes sense because they found Tomotake's body, and then because of that, they led to them investigating Takano and finding her body. It is interesting how they, like, immediately found Takano and Tomotake's bodies, but then they still are just like, Rina? Tepe? Who are they? Even though they died way earlier.
なるほど。秘密捜査なのは分かったが、レナはそんな話 どこで聞いたんだよ。
内緒だよ。私実は大石っていう沖宮署の刑事さんと連絡を取り合っているの。
What would chapter 1 have gone like if Keiichi was just up front and like, oh yeah, yeah, that guy's the police officer. He just wanted to ask me questions about Tomatake's like body. That probably would have changed some stuff.
その人に教え
Or
て
maybe
もらっ
not.
た。
どうして大石って人
Because
が
in that timeline, his friends were involved in the conspiracy, apparently. I don't understand chapter 1 at all, man.
さあ、ちょっとそこはわからない。彼が言うには私なら信用できそうだからって言うんだけどね。
I was dumbfounded to hear all of this. But I knew she wasn't lying. If it was Mion, she'd be sticking her tongue out by now. But Rena wouldn't make a joke out of something like this.
ミオさんが殺された理由は多分彼女の研究のせいだと思うの。
I was gonna ask how they knew about her research, but she was literally talking about it to everyone in the library, so it wouldn't be hard.
ミオさんがこの村の歴史とか民族学とかそういうのを熱心に調べてたってのは知っている？
なんとなくは聞いたことある。
Takano-san was interested in the occult and in mysterious things. I remember Mion once told me that she was studying the village's legends of man-eating demons out of curiosity.
彼女は多分その研究の中でこの村に関するある重要な秘密を知ってしまったの。あるいは彼女はそんなにも確信には踏み入ってなかったのかもしれないけど。
ちょっと待て、この村の秘密ってなんだよ。
私はミオさんのスクラップ帳をほんの数冊借りて読んだだけ。でも彼女が特に大事にしていた秘蔵の数冊だからかなり重要なことが記してあったと思う。だから多分ミオさんが至ろうとしていたことに8割方ぐらいは近づいていると思うの。でもあまりに突拍子もなくて私にはまだ信じられない。ミオさんの想像が正しいかどうか検証してる段階なの。
で、なんなんだ一体。秘密を知ると殺されるっていうこの村の秘密ってのは。
I gasped the moment those words left my mouth. If Rena told me, I might get killed too.
ケイチ君にはまだ全部話したくない。確証が持てたら話すね。だってそれくらいに途方もないとんでもない話だから。
確証ってなんだよ。
例えば予備知識のない内訳については私自らがその存在を検証できているけど他にもたくさん未検証の
What
ことがある
maggot
の。
disease?
それらを埋めていかないと私ですら
You just said that out loud. I can't tell you about the maggot disease, but maggots? I was totally lost now, and I wanted to ask her some questions, but I decided not to cut in. It was so hot outside. But Rena held her arms as if she was cold.
レナ、俺はいつだってお前の味方なんだからな。
It's interesting, so far only chapter 1 had Takano being demoned away, but in every other chapter afterwards she's found burnt up. That's true. I don't think I ever made that connection, but you're right. Because that was the whole thing about chapter 1, where it was all about her being demoned away and like Keiichi freaking out that he's going to be demoned away next. Huh.
俺だけは信用してくれて構わない。
Thanks for adding another mystery for me to figure out. Man, chapter 1, man. They just... I can't figure out how that lines up at all.
ありがとう。その一言がすごい嬉しい。
From her expression alone, I could tell she really meant it. I could also tell she was involved in something very big, and that she felt lonely because she couldn't tell anybody else about it. I had to be on her side while she was going through a difficult time.
私とね、今日ここで出会ったことは内緒にした方がいいと思う。
Don't worry, when Keiichi has to keep a secret, nothing bad ever happens.
私と接触があったことが知られたら、ケイチ君にも危害が及ぶかもしれないから。
わかった。俺に何か協力できることはないのかよ。
今はない。でも協力をお願いできることが分かっただけで、今の私には心
How
強
is
い
he
の。
not freaking out when he freaked out so much in chapter 1?
最後には頼らせて。
おう、任せとけ。
し、車が来る。
Rena pushed my head into the bush. I went along with it and crouched down to even lower in the bushes. We stayed quiet for a while. I could hear a car coming closer, and after a while a white van passed by. Is that the same one that tried to hit me in Chapter 1? I was surprised at her hearing. She heard the car coming when it was still far off in the distance.
今の車、ナンバー見えた？
Is it Da Pope?
いや、ごめん。見えなかった。
私もちょっと見えなかったけど、多分さっきと同じナンバーの車だと思うの。
その、レナを尾行しているとかいう連中か？
多分。普段車なんか通らない道で、今日は何度も追い上げられるの。
Suspicious.
その度に私は隠れてやり過ごしているからいいんだけど、どうもおかしい。
そいつらなのか？高野さんたちを殺して、レナが持ってるスクラップ帳を狙っているという連中は。
What color was Takano's car in Chapter 3? I don't remember. I don't remember if they even told us. But we rode in Takano's car as Keiichi after burying, Tepe. Did she drive a white van? Does it mention that? That would be very... Takano's just, like, wearing a mask or something, driving around with, like, a hockey mask, like... That would be funny.
多分。
I don't blame her for not being able to believe what's going on, because this is really crazy. Takano-san uncovered something really significant for her studies. The people who want that information hidden found out about it, and they killed her on the night of Watanagashi, copying the curse of Oyoshiro-sama. They're looking for the scrapbooks, the fruits of her research, and Rena has them. That's why they're trying to kill Rena?
じゃあ、レナの家が危ないってことはないのか？
大丈夫。スクラップ帳はゴミ山の私の隠れ家に隠してある。
The only people who knew about that are dead! And you guys.
お父さんが不安だけど、何も知らないからこそ何も危害が及ばないかもしれない。圭一君が言わなくても顔に書いてあるよ。突拍子もない話でとても信じられない。でしょ？
I wanted to deny it, but it felt bad to lie. Don't lie to Rena. We learned that in Chapter 1. You don't lie to Rena. She knows, and she'll lose it. I remained silent in the affirmative.
それが当然の反応。私だってミオさんのスクラップ帳を読み始めた最初はなんだこりゃって思って全然信じられなかったもの。全てに目を通してようやく何かの筋が見えてきたんだもん。
すまん。もちろんレナの味方になりたいのは本心だ。でも話が全然見えないんで、どう助けてやればいいかわかんないんだ。
話せば圭一君の身にも危険が降りかかるよ。
レナにはすでに降りかかってるんだろ？ならおあいこだぜ。気にするな。
わかった。話す。
Ooh.
多分ミオさんたちを殺したのはひなみ沢御
That's what
三
they
家。
always think. And then we learned apparently that it's not them. Either that or Mio lied, but it really doesn't seem like Mio lied in Chapter 5.
もっとはっきり言ってしまえばみーちゃんの家である。その
どうして？
圭一君も過去の連続開
What
始
is
事件を
this
知ってるよ
song?
ね。
ああ、ダム戦争の時の村の旧敵ばかりが毎年犠牲になっていくっていうあれだろ？
この連続開始事件はダム戦争の生産のようなものなの。村の裏切り者を片付けることによって本当の意味でダム戦争を終わらせようとする。
確かにそう見えないことはないよな。誰もがはっきりと口にはしないが、うすうすと園崎家の仕業だと疑ってるみたいな話は聞いたことあるぜ。
でも裏切り者を制裁するなら別に綿流しの場にこだわらなくてもいいんじゃない？
What is this, like, Jurassic Park Tarzan music we're getting here? It sounds like the music that would play when you're on a jungle level.
毎年たたりで一人鬼隠しで一人なんてスローペースで殺す必要はない。そうでしょ？
I've never heard the words demoning away before, but Rena clearly thought it might have some kind of creepy, significant meaning, so I decided not to cut in.
つまりこれらの連続開始事件は綿流しの祭りに神聖性を取り戻そうとする意志があるの。もっと踏み込んで言うと
明治以降に失われた鬼ヶ淵村の神聖性を取り戻すための段階的イベント。彼らは最終的には太古の昔にそうだったような原理的なお社様信仰を復活させることを目的としている。
Same music.
お社様信仰、古出神社のことか。
そう、古出神社って崇められていると思う？お年寄りの人は敬っているけど、それだけだよね。子供たちは境内を遊び場くらいにしか思ってないし、ほとんどの村人たちも地域の集会所くらいにしか思っていない。その神聖性は失われている。それがダム戦争をきっかけに蘇ったの。彼らはそれをお社様信仰を復活させるいい機会だと捉えた。
ってことはつまりお社様信仰の狂信者たちが裏で暗躍しているってことか。
そういうこと。そもそもお社様信仰は御三家によって管理されていた。だから御三家には現代にも脈々とお社様信仰を復活させなければならないという至上目的が受け継がれているの。それを思えば御三家がダム戦争中に村を一丸にまとめたり、廃れかけていたお社様を引き合いに出し、古出神社にわざわざ同盟事務所を設けた理由も透けて見えてくる。
じゃあひなみ沢村連続開始事件ってのは、いやお社様を信仰する狂信的な集団の仕業なら、待てよ、どうして高野さんが殺されなきゃならないんだ。
それは御三家が鬼ヶ淵村と呼ばれた太古からずっと隠してきたこの村のある重大な秘密に関係があるの。それを暴かれるとお社様という神の神聖性が失われる。だから彼らはミオさんの研究が確信に近づいたことを知り消したの。
その重大な秘密ってのは何なんだ。それを知ると俺も狙われるってんだろうけど。
I wonder if we're gonna get Keiichi acting like he did in chapter 1, but then also Rena in a different situation.
だからそれはまだ言いたくない。私自身が10割の確証を得るまで。多分今ここで話しても圭一君は耐えきれなくなって。
おいおい、俺がそんなやつに見えるかよ。
Yeah, every time I meet you on the road, you're like, ha ha ha, in the derpy Keiichi spray.
もう少し時間が欲しいの。あまりの事実に私ですら受け入れきれていないの。だからもう少し時間を欲しいの。お願い。
わかった。
今日ここで話したことは誰にも喋っちゃダメだよ。みーちゃんとリカちゃん、もちろんさとこちゃんにもダメ。
Well, you don't have to worry about that. Rika's gonna be dead in a couple days.
わかったよ。
じゃあ圭一君はもう行って。私はもう少し辺りを伺ってから行く。用心に過ぎるということはないからね。
Rena ducked low in the bushes and moved away. I was left alone there. The cries of the cicadas surrounded around me. Surrounded around me? I feel like that's redundant, making it seem as if I was alone there the whole time. I started walking, still dumbfounded. In the end, Rena didn't tell me the secret because she was afraid of putting me in danger. But I am the danger. But she told me clearly that there are people who want to resurrect the cult of Oyashiro-sama, and that they're among the free families that control the entire village. They orchestrated the deaths of the series of mysterious deaths for that purpose, and they killed Takano-san because she got too close to the secret they wanted to hide. Rena met Takano-san and happened to obtain the scrapbooks in which Takano-san wrote about her research. Rena still can't believe the secret written in the scrapbooks because it's just too crazy. Hey. Come on, Rena. You're kidding me, right? It's like one of those comic book stories. A mysterious occult group is plotting a conspiracy. I mean, it's not funny, even if it's a joke. But Rena's right about one thing. Even if this is true, it's really hard to believe. I understand why Rena wanted to wait to tell me the secret. Maybe she was just fooled by Takano-san. But Takano-san was murdered for real. But she wasn't. So is it also true that someone is following Rena, looking for the scrapbooks? I remember. Rena said that a white van was following her. You can see white vans anywhere. I bet there are a lot in this village alone. She might just be oversensitive to everything right now. Rena hasn't recovered from the shock since that day. That's probably why she got the idea into her head that the police or someone else is coming after her. I didn't cut in while she was talking. I think I did the right thing. If I had said that it was ridiculous or something to her face, Rena wouldn't have trusted me ever again. At that point, however, I gasped. A white van was parked on the side of the street. I wasn't sure if this was the same car that passed by earlier, since I didn't see the plate number. But the number of the people in the car and the ambience of it was similar to the one earlier. And there's one other thing that looked suspicious about it. There was no reason to park here. It was on a small road in the middle of the woods. There's nothing around here. No traffic lights, no vending machines, and no public phones. But there's great scenery. I probably wouldn't notice it under ordinary circumstances, but I felt something was wrong. And once I noticed how odd it was definitely suspicious. There were 4 men in work uniforms in the white van. The driver was smoking a cigarette, but the other men were just sitting there doing nothing. If they wanted to take a break or have a smoke, they could have chosen a better place than here. It was possible that they stopped because they had to go to the bathroom really badly, but it didn't seem that way either. They didn't look as comfortable or relaxed like they would if they were taking a break. They looked like they were waiting for something to happen. There was a deep tension in that car. Could they possibly be waiting for Rena? No way. I didn't see anybody walking around here. The road is a back road. Nobody really uses this road, let alone by car. But it's impossible. I felt bad for Rena to even think about it, but there must be something that got into her head because she's feeling victimized or something. She must be imagining things because she's still nervous from her friends caught her in the act of killing Rina and Tepe.
Nii-chan.
I heard someone say that when I passed by the van. He couldn't mean me. He didn't even know who I was. So I assumed he was talking to one of the other people in the car. I pretended I didn't hear him and kept walking by. And then he said it again. And honked the horn as well.
兄ちゃん、すまんね。学校の帰りかいね。
He had a strong accent similar to that of the older villagers. He must live here, but I didn't know him. I could tell he didn't know me either, because he didn't call me by name.
はい、そうですけど。
兄ちゃん、学校からこの道をずっと歩いてきたんで、ちょうど文房具屋の角を曲がって。
そうですけど、何か？
They were probably lost, I thought. This village has many small turns, and you can easily get lost when you try to take a shortcut. So they must have been waiting for someone to ask for directions. But then he said something disturbing.
兄ちゃんさ、この道の途中で女の子に会わんかったかいね。
Uh-oh.
あの、
Identity crisis saw on his back.
白い帽子に白い服を着た女の子なんよ。紫のリボンもついとん。会わんかったかいね。
They were definitely talking about Rena.
いえ、
Oh no, he's the worst liar in the world. They're gonna know he's lying.
会ってないです。
I wasn't ready to hear them ask that. Rather, I was scared. That's why my voice got all shaky. Up until that point, I couldn't believe Rena's story. I thought it was ridiculous. I actually laughed, if only to myself. That's why I wasn't ready at all. My heart was beating fast and I was sweating all over. I immediately answered, no, I didn't, but... It might have sounded like an obvious lie. The driver stared into my eyes. He looked like he was trying to figure out if I was lying or not, and my legs started to shake. I felt like a frog under the glare of a snake, and I couldn't move a muscle for a while. But I think the same went for those men, too. They were clearly a suspicious group, and they had just asked a villager about a girl out of the blue. Anybody would get suspicious. And I was right. The man broke the ice and started making excuses before I even asked him why he wanted to know about the girl.
ああ、そんな深い意味はないんね。さっき女の子を追い抜いたのによ。来たのが男の子だったから。
そうですか。
忘れてえな。ごめんな兄ちゃん。
Hmm.
うちらもう行くんて。
The man started the engine and drove away. After they left, I saw nothing. That's right, nothing. There was no reason why they had to park here. So, were they really waiting for Rena? They basically just said they were. Uh-oh. Rena is wanted for questioning about the disappearance of Albus Dumbledore. New tips unlocked! Lunch takeout list number 2. Oh great, they scribbled the lunch list on the back of Rena's schizophrenia medication. Mystery machine! Be drawn further into the conspiracy. That is not the mystery machine. That is just a white vehicle. There was no Scooby-Doo in that at all. Ridiculous. Lunch takeout list 2. Furthermore, it's important that we closely monitor her father. Since he has also suffered mental shock from the divorce and he has been trying hard to take care of the patient, there's a strong possibility that he may develop an induced delusional disorder. As the first step of mental care, one should listen to the patient's story carefully without denying it. That's the most basic of basics. However, when the patient and the listener are related, it's easy for the listener to become deeply influenced by the patient's delusions. Additionally, delusional parasitosis is widely known to make people highly impressionable, and the influence sometimes can spread throughout a whole community. That's true. Therefore, even if several people claim to acquire a parasitic infection, it doesn't necessarily prove the existence of a parasite. Well, how very interesting that you would bring that up. Some of the phone calls to the healthcare centers for the extermination of pests are nothing but a mass delusion. Since the subject matter of the delusion in this case is extremely rabid, the patients might harm or even kill each other in abnormal ways, believing this to be the treatment for the disease. They might also give up hope and commit suicide together in the worst case. This influential delusional disorder, otherwise known as shared psychotic disorder, shows a particularly strong possibility of influencing close companions. Anyone who's going to contact the patients must be made to understand that the patients are under medical treatment and must be warned not to be influenced by the patient's delusions. Individuals who are likely to be influenced are the patient's family members and people who care deeply about the patients, such as boyfriends or girlfriends. That had even less to do with the lunch takeout order list. They didn't even write it on the back there. Well, that doesn't paint a good light for what's going to happen to Keiichi now, wasn't this? This is a cheerful conversation topic. What else is new for Higurashi? Still more pleasant than... It's still a lot more pleasant reading that than the child abuse statistics in Chapter 3. That was by far the most disturbing tip. And also probably the number 3 most unnerving moment in the series for me up to this point. Alright, well, I think we're going to end the stream there. Because my voice is, I'm not going to say going, but my voice is maybe a little bit strained. And we did 2 more parts. We're at the end of Chapter 8 now. So, we got for that a little bit quicker than usual, but... a lot of it, I think, was retreading old ground with the Curse of Oyashiro-sama and the history of Onikafuchi. So, there we go. That's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching and chatting, everybody. It was great catching up with you all. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your night, and God bless everyone.